Hello everyone, and welcome again to Damascene Cuisine. Today we're going to be learning how to make Fatayer Sabanegh, which is basically a spinach-filled pastry. This is a great side dish or appetizer to serve with a meal, and we like to make a lot of these pastry-type dishes during Ramadan to kind of fill up the table. So let's get started. Okay, so to start, here are our ingredients. We need 2 10-ounce bags of spinach, half an onion, 1/2 or 1/4 cup of pomegranate seeds. If you have that, it's optional. 1/4 cup of pine nuts, 1 roll of flaky layer biscuits. Just make sure they're not the buttermilk kind, get the original kind. They can be any brand though. And then if you have the pomegranate seeds, you're only going to need 1 tablespoon of pomegranate molasses. But if you don't have the pomegranate seeds, make that 2 tablespoons of pomegranate molasses. Okay, so the first step is going to be to chop our onion very finely. Next, we're going to clean and rinse out our spinach. Okay, the next step is to fry our onions. So I have a large pot, and it's a pot, not a pan, because we're going to be putting our spinach in here. And I put a tablespoon of vegetable oil, and I'm waiting for that to heat up. My onions have started to brown, but we're not quite there yet. We want all of them to be relatively brown. So it looks like all of my onions are pretty golden brown. Alright, so we add the spinach. First bag going in. I know it seems like a lot, but these wilt as they cook, as I'm sure you already know. Add a few at a time until I can cook them all. See, look at that. This is the first bag. I haven't added the second one yet. In goes my second bag. Okay. And I'm not going to cover it because these leaves let out a lot of water and we don't want our stuffing to be super wet. Look at that. That is the second bag wilted. So 2 bags of spinach. I believe I forgot to mention that we need salt for this food, but duh, we always need salt. So right now we're going to add about a 1/2 tablespoon of salt. Okay. And now we just kind of wait for it to dry up a little bit. As you can see, there's quite a bit of water in my pot. Once you've lost a good chunk of the water, it's time to add the pomegranate molasses. And again, if you're going to be using pomegranate seeds, you only want 1 tablespoon, but if you don't have pomegranate seeds, go ahead and add 2. Now while we wait for this to dry up a little bit more, we don't want it too dry, but we don't want it this soupy either. So while we wait for that to dry up, we're going to heat up our pine nuts. Here I have a small pan. I'm going to put just a little bit of olive oil, maybe 1/2 tablespoon, and wait for it to heat up. Okay, with the oil heated up, we add our pine nuts. It only takes a few seconds, really, like 30 seconds, and they're ready to go into our pot. This looks like it's about done. We haven't added our pomegranate seeds yet because we don't want it to cook, so we're actually going to wait for this to cool down before we add them. But the way you know this is done is basically if you use your little wooden spoon and you push some of your stuffing back, if you don't immediately see some water go into that space, you know that it's pretty much ready. So, I mean, eventually water will come through because, again, we don't want it completely dry, but if it doesn't immediately kind of flood that gap that you made, then it is dry enough. And so now we turn it off and let it cool. Now that our spinach stuffing has completely cooled down, we're going to take our pomegranate seeds, if you have them, and mix them in. Once we've mixed that in, we're going to set the stuffing aside and we're going to get to work on our dough. Okay, so here I'd like to say that if you have a dough that you prefer to work with, go ahead and pause this video and make that dough, and then come back and see how we make our spinach pastries. If you don't, this is where our handy dandy biscuit dough comes in. This is a shortcut that my mom has used for a really long time. It's very tasty. I do have a preferred dough I like to work with, and I will one day share that recipe, but today is not the day. It takes a little bit of work, and we're currently going through our little COVID crisis, and I can't find yeast or a sufficient amount of flour to save my life. So we're going to make do with this little quick and easy shortcut, which is perfect for Ramadan. So on a clean surface, we're going to sprinkle some flour. No measurements here, just a few handfuls. And then we're going to open our biscuit dough. Alright, then we pull apart each biscuit. There should be 8. Then you take one of your biscuits and you kind of use your thumbs to gently pry apart between the layers. It'll eventually come apart in 2 pieces. One thinner piece and one thicker piece. And we can take the thicker piece and find another break in between the layers like that and pull that apart as well. They're not all going to be an even thickness, but that's okay, we're going to roll them out. So this one's slightly thicker than the other 2. But we've made 3 little round disc doughs from 1 biscuit. And not all of them will need to be pulled apart into 3 pieces. Don't do what I just did. It really just depends on how uneven the 2 parts come away. That's okay, we're going to roll that back into place. This one's still slightly thicker. This was a pretty even split, so I'm just going to keep it like that. And then same with this one. So we have about 20 discs here. I'm going to powder each side with some flour, just like that, and set them to the side so we make some room to work. Now I take some more flour, sprinkle my little work area. Right, so I take one of these little dough discs and I take a rolling pin and I just roll it out. And I try to let it keep that circular shape. So they come out, I mean, depending on how many times you broke apart your biscuit, this looks like it was just half, so it'll be that big. And this was a smaller one, a little third of a disc. It comes out slightly smaller. That's okay. Once you've finished rolling out your little dough discs, you're going to take your spinach stuffing or filling and put about a spoonful or so, making sure to get a couple of pomegranates here and there, into the center of each of your little discs. And then I have a small bowl of just water to the side, and this is going to be used to go around the edges of each of your circles just to make the dough a little bit stickier. So then, and this is the part that requires a bit of practice and technique, you're going to take the edges, or just grab like 2 points on your circle, kind of, let's say maybe 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. I don't know how else to describe it, and bring those together, and you're going to make the top half of your spinach triangle, just like that. And then you're going to take, let's put a little more water, the bottom edge, and make the last bit of your triangle. So you bring it together to the first bit and try to even it out so it looks triangular. And there you go. And I'll make a few more. Okay, so our spinach fatayer are ready to go into the oven. I'm preheating my oven to 350 degrees, and we're going to put them in for about 10 to 15 minutes, or until they're slightly golden brown. One important thing to remember is to just kind of go through and pinch all of the edges of your spinach triangles, just to make sure that everything stays perfectly sealed, because once these cook, the dough is going to expand just a little bit, and you don't want the edges to pull apart when that happens. So just kind of double check everything is perfectly closed and sealed, just a once over. Okay. And then another little note, you don't have to keep them too far apart on your pan. They don't puff up too much in the oven, so about a ½ inch between them should be good enough. And there we have it, out of the oven, golden brown. Cool. Okay, and mine have slightly cooled, so I'm going to go ahead and put them in a serving platter.